These are the reports and overview of events of the war on Iran. Day 33. Yesterday, I reported that some NATO member nations expressed their stance on not helping President Trump in the war on Iran. The countries reported yesterday were Spain, France, and Italy. Now, most European allies, including Spain, Italy, France, Germany, the UK, Luxembourg, Iceland, and Poland, have publicly refused direct military involvement, emphasizing the defensive nature of NATO and their preference for diplomatic solutions, highlighting a division amongst NATO. While 6 NATO members, Canada, Albania, North Macedonia, Lithuania, Latvia, and the Czech Republic, have expressed support for U.S. and Israel military operations against Iran, the majority of NATO members have either stayed neutral or actively opposed direct involvement. Several NATO allies have explicitly declined to facilitate the U.S. military effort. Spain closed its airspace to U.S. military planes and denied use of Spanish bases for combat operations. Italy denied U.S. bombers access to Italian bases in Sicily for operational purposes. France restricted overflight of planes carrying military supplies intended for Israel or the Iran campaign. England allowed defensive use only, avoiding participation in actions against Iran directly. Germany explicitly refused to engage in military operations and emphasized NATO's defensive mandate. Poland declined to redeploy air defense systems to the Middle East, citing national security priorities. Luxembourg and Iceland condemned Iran's actions and supported diplomacy, but did not endorse U.S. military participation. These responses reflect a widespread belief among NATO members that the Iran conflict does not fall under the alliance's defensive remit and signals reluctance to escalate military involvement outside Europe. U.S. leadership has expressed frustration with these refusals, and discussions about NATO's role and U.S. engagement with the alliance continue. Further, Israel has publicly stated and confirmed that it will not deploy ground troops in any potential U.S.-led operations in Iran, while continuing to provide intelligence and air support. Israel's military and government sources, including Israeli media Channel 12, have stated that if the United States conducts a ground operation in Iran, Israeli soldiers will not participate in combat on the ground. This reflects a strategic decision to focus Israeli forces on defending its own borders, particularly in Lebanon and Gaza, where active threats from Hezbollah and Hamas persist. Experts and former officials have noted that both Israel and the U.S. currently lack the political will to deploy ground troops in Iran. While Israel has supported American planning by providing intelligence on strategic locations, including the Strait of Hormuz and Iranian islands, its involvement is expected to remain limited to airstrikes, surveillance, and possibly covert operations rather than overt troop deployment. The broader military context shows that as of late March 2026, the conflict has primarily involved airstrikes, missile, and drone attacks from the U.S. and Israel, without any ground forces entering Iranian territory. Iranian officials have made explicit threats against foreign ground forces, underscoring the high-risk environment for any potential ground operation. Iran has issued strong warnings regarding potential ground operations in the UAE, framing its response as defensive against perceived aggressions. The situation underscores the dangers of regional escalation, the humanitarian impact on civilians, and the critical role of diplomatic interventions to prevent a widening conflict. Iran's leaders have signaled that they would respond forcefully to any ground operations by the United States or Israel in neighboring countries, including the UAE. This statement reflects Tehran's broader strategy of deterring intervention by projecting the potential consequences of escalation across the Gulf region. Diplomatic efforts are ongoing to mitigate escalation, with mediators from Pakistan, Egypt, and other states attempting to facilitate dialogue between Iran, the UAE, the U.S., and Israel. These efforts aim to establish ceasefires and negotiate terms that reduce the risk of further conflict. There are reports that a group of U.S. Marines were captured on Karg Island, off of Iran's northwest coast. The U.S. government has not verified this information yet. Stay tuned as we try to verify this story.
The first American prisoners of war in Iran have just been taken? That's the claim coming out of Iranian state media right now. And if true, it could mark a serious turning point in U.S.-Iran tensions. Here's what's being reported. Iranian news says a group of U.S. Marines attempted a landing operation on Karg Island and were captured by Iranian forces during that operation. And they're not just saying it, they're showing it. The footage being aired includes night vision visuals, soldiers moving under darkness, flares lighting up the sky, and figures in full tactical gear. There's also a segment showing a man in a casual t-shirt, his face blurred, presented as one of the captured individuals. On-screen text describes it as a successful Iranian operation capturing U.S. soldiers and their equipment. Now, to understand why this matters, you have to understand this place. Karg Island may look like a small island on the map, but it is one of the most critical nakats in Iran's entire economy. Nearly 90% of Iran's oil exports pass through here. That means this island is not just territory, it is leverage. And it sits right next to some of the most important shipping lanes in the world, near the Strait of Hormuz. So any military action here is never just local. Now, rewind just a few days. On March 13, 2026, the United States carried out airstrikes on military targets on Karg Island, carefully avoiding oil infrastructure. At the same time, thousands of U.S. troops, including Marine units and elements of the 82nd Airborne Division, have been moving into the region. So when Iranian media claims a U.S. landing attempt was stopped and Marines were captured, it fits into a much bigger story. A story of rising pressure, positioning, and signals being sent on both sides. Iranian coverage presents this as a clear message that the island is defended, and any attempt to challenge that control will be met with force. But here's the key question. There has been no official confirmation from the United States about any Marines being captured, which means, right now, this claim exists in a highly charged war space where every image, every clip, and every statement carries weight. Because if this is confirmed, it would not just be another incident. It would be a moment that could redefine how far this conflict goes. And until more details emerge, one thing is clear. All eyes are now on Karg Island.
Where's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei? Day 21. The U.S. serviceman casualty count in this illegal war on Iran remains the same. 13 U.S. service members have been confirmed killed and over 303 wounded since the war began on February 28, 2026, according to U.S. records. The most authoritative and up-to-date figures coming from Iran's health ministry reports 1,444 killed and approximately 18,551 injured Iranians. Pray for those who have, and who will be, killed in this illegal war on Iran. This has been your daily briefing on the war in Iran. Stay informed, stay critical, and stay tuned. And remember, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.